In yesterday's video, we finally met with Ambassador Crocker, who represents the NCR on the New Vegas Strip. He asked us for our help. You see, when the NCR military came to Nevada from California, a bunch of travelers, merchants, and tradesmen came with them, as well as all of their families. These people needed a place to stay, and many of them chose to stay in the slums of Freeside. However, Freeside was already occupied. And ever since these NCR citizens arrived, they have been subjected to weekly and even daily violence. Now, the NCR is tired of turning a blind eye. The violence has to stop. Ambassador Crocker told us that the violence was often instigated by a man named Pacer. Pacer is a lieutenant of a gang in Freeside called the Kings. We met Pacer and the King himself when I did a dedicated video to the Kings of Freeside, which you can watch here. I recommend watching that video before continuing for better context of the events that are about to happen. Ambassador Crocker told us that he bets that if Pacer were to simply vanish, the violence in Freeside against NCR citizens would stop. And so he gave us a choice. We can either find a way to kill Pacer, effectively turning us into an NCR assassin, or we can try to find a diplomatic way to resolve this. And to do that, we'd have to work with the King directly. This leaves us many ways to solve this quest. We'll explore each avenue, and we'll start by assassinating Pacer. There are a few ways to assassinate Pacer. The first is to exploit knowledge we gained about Pacer during the events of my video on the Kings concerning Pacer's addiction to jet. To do so, we need to know more about Pacer's medical history. And to find that, we have to travel to the old Mormon fort in Freeside. This is the headquarters of the Followers of the Apocalypse, the only doctor in Freeside. If anyone has medical records on the Kings, it's gonna be the Followers. Inside the fort, if we immediately turn right, we can head inside a scrap door to the northwestern tower. This is where Julie Farkas lives, and it's also where she receives patients. If we walk behind a privacy screen, we find a filing cabinet. Inspecting it, we learn that the drawers of this filing cabinet are labeled patient records, followed by a subset of the alphabet. If we choose to search for Pacer's patient file, we quickly find a manila folder with Pacer's name on it in the drawer marked NR. Inspecting his patient records in our inventory, first name, Pacer, last name, would not give / doesn't know, blood type AB, birth date unsure, sex, male. Note, patient checked himself in at the urging of friends regarding a serious dependency on the drug known as jet. Preliminary tests show continued use of the drug is very dangerous due to the patient's pre-existing heart condition, coronary arterial disease. Under no circumstances should any sort of stimulant like psycho be taken, particularly with the patient's current drug of choice. So Pacer has a dicky ticker. Perhaps if we sabotage his jet stash, we can cause him to have a heart attack. To do so, we head back to the King's School of Impersonation. We then have to head all the way to the top floor to find Pacer's room. Pacer's room is the first room to the left upon reaching the top floor.
Shh, we're hunting shitheads.
He typically doesn't hang around here during the day, but we often find him standing around his bed at night. Sometimes he sleeps, but honestly, I don't know how this guy gets through a day because I rarely find him sleeping. Now, because we're a friend of the King's, even if he sees us, he doesn't get suspicious. Nevertheless, I tried waiting for him to leave his bed, but even if he walked away, he always walked back. But heading over to his bed, we find a carton of cigarettes under his bed. Examining it, we learn that this is where Pacer keeps his jet. The box contains a large amount of jet. You could lace the jet with some psycho if you had some. We can leave the jet alone, or spike the jet with psycho. We'll spike the jet for now. We carefully add psycho to Pacer's jet, guaranteeing an altogether different high the next time he uses it. As long as we remained hidden, even though he was standing right here, he doesn't catch us. Then we have to play the waiting game. It takes a few minutes, but eventually, Pacer uses his jet.
Damn, yes.
And he drops dead to the floor. On his body, we can loot his jailhouse rocker outfit, which is the same as what all the other kings wear, and Pacer's key. This key just unlocks the back door to the main stage of the School of Impersonation. It's not really useful. With Pacer dead, we can return to Ambassador Crocker and tell him that we laced Pacer's jet with Psycho, and it didn't go well for him.
Good show. With the conditions there, no one will suspect anything other than bad drugs to be the culprit. You've done a great service for the NCR.
Another option is to get him in trouble with the Van Graffs. We learned when I did my video on the Van Graffs at the Silver Rush Casino that Gloria and Pacer had a bit of a history. However, a number of things have to occur in order for us to find an option to frame the Van Graffs. First, we have to learn about this bad blood between the Van Graffs and Pacer. To do so, we head to a ruined building next to Mick and Ralph's, where we find Rotface.
Ah, my favorite customer. Got a cap for me?
Rotface sells tips. We can pay him a cap for all sorts of gossip. He has a lot of interesting things to say, and provides us some backstory as to why the NCR is so hated here in Freeside.
Mention the NCR and people around here get a little on edge. There's talk that they're going to take over all of New Vegas. It doesn't help that they've got military camps all over the place, and more troops pour into the area daily. People in Freeside generally fall into one of two categories. Those who've been here all their lives call themselves locals. When people from the NCR and other places started pouring in, the locals began referring to them as squatters, and the name stuck. The locals blame the squatters for the scarcity of resources in Freeside, and the squatters blame any act of violence against them on the locals. They're both right to some extent, and violent outbreaks between the two are all too common these days.
But eventually, if we continue to give him caps, Rotface says,
If you've been around the Kings, you may have met one of them named Pacer. He's always stomping around trying to show off his authority. Being new, you weren't around when it happened, but a few months ago, Pacer pissed off the Van Graff family big time. No one knows what went down, but word is the Van Graffs still want him dead.
Once we hear this bit of gossip, we can then head to Mick and Ralph's. Talking with Ralph,
Hey, thanks for getting Bill Ronte fixed up. I was really getting sick of paying for water. Now, what can I do for you?
we can ask Ralph if he can forge a handwritten note for us.
Sure, just tell me the author and what you want it to say.
I need a note written to Pacer from Jean-Baptiste Cutting.
Not a problem. I occasionally do business with the Van Graffs, so I have a sample of Mr. Cutting's handwriting around here somewhere. What would you like it to say?
Just that Jean-Baptiste has Pacer's jet.
Like to live dangerously, do we? No problem. And here you go.
With this note, we can get Pacer so upset that he commits suicide. To do so, we can put it inside his cigarette carton where he keeps his jet. But to get that carton to spawn, we have to go back to the old Mormon fort and inspect the filing cabinet. Once the carton is spawned, and once we have the note from Mick and Ralph's, we can head back to Pacer's room and inspect his stash. This time, we'll take the jet and leave Ralph's forged letter. The letter reads, Pacer, I've taken your jet to make up some of what you owe. If you want it back, you know where to find me. Jean-Baptiste Cutting. The box now contains nothing save for a simple handwritten note. Then, like last time, we play the waiting game. After a few minutes, Pacer inspects his jet stash and then reads the note. Then, with gun drawn, he races down the stairs and out the front door of the King's School of Impersonation. We can follow him down the street, and the first thing he does is murder the Silver Rush Casino crier.
Come on!
But the Van Graff guards at the Silver Rush see it happen, and so they open fire at Pacer. What was Pacer thinking? Taking on the entire Silver Rush single-handedly? Alternatively, if for some reason the Van Graffs are all dead, he races past the Atomic Wrangler and barges into the front door of the Silver Rush Casino. Now, in my game, I had already killed Gloria Van Graff and her brother Jean-Baptiste, so when we arrived here in the Silver Rush, it was completely empty. Pacer just stood around, but we managed to lure him away from the King's School of Impersonation, and we can use the opportunity to murder him with an energy weapon.
Got me.
Or we can simply kill Pacer at any time with an energy weapon. And as long as we remain undetected, the Kings remain friendly. No matter which of these three methods we choose, Crocker has the same response. We can return to Ambassador Crocker and say, I used an energy weapon to kill Pacer, so the Van Graffs should take the blame.
Killing two birds with one stone. Excellent. You've done a great service for the NCR.
But let's say that assassination isn't really our cup of tea. Instead of killing Pacer, we can try to appeal to the better nature of the king. However, after completing the king's quest, if we chose to call in his favor by officially becoming a member of the king's or by asking for money, the king can't help us when we tell him that we need him to stop the violence against NCR citizens.
I'd like to help you out, especially considering all you've done. But that's a pretty big favor you're asking for, and you've already used yours.
So we come upon a brick wall. We now have to head back to Ambassador Crocker and tell him that the king won't deal with the NCR.
That's most unfortunate. In this circumstance, I've been instructed to send you along to Colonel Moore over at Hoover Dam for further orders. The colonel will likely send you back to Freeside with a squad of armed men, for all the good that will do.
That'll show the people in Freeside who's in charge.
More like instigate a mass riot. People there already think the NCR is trying to take this place over. We'd only be confirming their fears.
Sending NCR soldiers into Freeside would be a bad idea.
I completely agree. Even if a riot didn't immediately break out, a line will have been crossed. And we'll have made that many more enemies.
Sounds like you and the colonel don't get along.
Oh, I like the colonel just fine. She's a good soldier, one of the best. I just don't think her general approach to things is a good fit here. See, the colonel likes to solve things neatly, quickly, and efficiently through a show of force if possible and through actual force if necessary. That won't work here. Unless she plans on killing half the population of Freeside, sending soldiers to the area will only make things worse.
But you've got another idea. Spit it out.
Is it that obvious? You must understand that while Colonel Moore's job is to get things done, my job is to represent the NCR's best interests.
All right, I guess I'll head on over to Colonel Moore then.
Wait a moment, if you would. While sending you to Colonel Moore is what I'm officially supposed to do, I'd like to propose an alternative.
So, what do you suggest?
I'd suggest you speak to Colonel Shue over at Camp McCarran. He's much more level-headed about this sort of thing. He's also in a better position to bargain with the people of Freeside, seeing as how he's in charge of water and power distribution in the area. Still, I'm only mentioning it as an option. My official orders are to direct you to Colonel Moore. Godspeed.
We now have to make a choice. Do we bring this problem to Colonel Moore or to Colonel Shue? We'll start by taking it to Colonel Moore. We find her in the bowels of Hoover Dam. She's often in her office, but she does like to get up and walk around a bit.
Whatever it is, make it quick. I don't have time for idle chatter.
Ambassador Crocker said to come see you about Freeside.
You say Crocker sent you? Let me see. I just received a memo regarding him recently and haven't had a chance to read it in detail. Ah, the matter with the so-called kings. Crocker's been wringing his hands while good people die for too long, and now the matter's fallen to me. Unlike the good ambassador, I don't intend to blink. Tell the leader of this gang to stand down or face annihilation. That is his choice. If he chooses the latter, a squad of my men will be there to back you up. Any questions?
This plan seems awfully confrontational.
Do you have any idea what our current situation is? As we speak, there is a huge army of madmen not 10 miles from here waiting to kill us all. We don't have the luxury of long-term diplomacy any longer. Anyone that could prove a hindrance in the battle to come must be dealt with swiftly. You have your orders. I expect you to carry them out.
Oh, all right. Guess I'll head to Freeside and shoot up some kings.
Not exactly. Give them the chance to do the right thing at least. Personally, I doubt they'll do it. Crocker's been making overtures to these savages for months and gotten nowhere. Expect a fight, but don't look for one.
Yes, ma'am. No further questions.
Good. When the task is done, report back to Crocker. My men have other orders and will return here on their own to make their report. Dismissed.
Whew. Colonel Moore does not play games. Heading back to Freeside, we find NCR soldiers standing outside the King's School of Impersonation.
When I got this assignment, I was hoping there'd be more gambling.
Man, I'm hungry. I'd give anything for a fancy lad. Wait, yeah, I mean, you know what I mean.
Heading inside, we see kings milling about, but inside the main hall, we see a dozen or so NCR soldiers. And as we walk towards the stage...
Maybe you can tell me what the hell is going on here? These stony-faced bastards haven't said a word, other than to say they're here under orders.
All three of these options have the same result. We can say, NCR citizens are dying in Freeside, and the NCR wants you to stop it.
Well, Freeside citizens are also being attacked, and I'd like you all to stop it, but I'm guessing that's not gonna happen, is it? This little show of force accomplishes nothing. So take your toy soldiers and go home. Show's over.
The NCR wants you to curb the violence in Freeside, or else.
You know, it's that or else part that gets stuck in my craw. It just sounds a little too much like you're trying to tell us what to do. And nobody tells the kings what to do. So why don't you and all of your little friends get the hell out of here? Or else.
I'm here to deliver an ultimatum from the NCR. Cease hostilities against the NCR, or perish.
An ultimatum? Do you even know who you're talking to? We're the kings, and no king will ever accept an ultimatum. Go back to your general or commodore or whatever the fuck and tell them to shove their ultimatum where the sun don't shine.
Guess he wants to do this the hard way, boys. Take him down.
And with that, the NCR and the kings open fire on each other. Oh, but the NCR makes quick work of the kings. When the kings in this room are dead, they pour out of the auditorium and into the foyer. They then rush into the hallways and purge the entire school of all kings' gang members.
Don't mess with us.
Had enough?
Oh no! They even killed the king's floozies? Oh, not the floozies. For some reason, the only King's gang member they left alive was Sergio. I'm assuming because he's a barber, he got a pass. Oh, and they even hunted down the last groupie. Brutal. Well, after witnessing that horrifying massacre, we can head back to the embassy and tell Ambassador Crocker that, the king sorta got killed while I was working on that Freeside job.
Oh, I've already heard. The kings are up in arms. The entire area is gripped by chaos and the violence has only increased. In fact, I've heard that many are assuming the NCR did it without even looking into the matter. This is the worst thing that could possibly happen. What do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, let's start with my reward.
Reward? You want a reward for setting our diplomatic efforts back a year?
When you put it that way, yes.
Oh, I see. You're proud of your efforts, huh? Thankfully, it looks like we won't be working together any longer.
If we choose that option, we get NCR infamy and no caps. Or we can say, what, you wanted a man dead? He's dead. Come on, now where's my caps?
If it'll get you out of my hair, this is a small price to pay. At least I won't have to put up with you any longer.
We also get infamy, but this time we get 150 caps. Or we can say, oh, well, I suppose I don't really deserve a reward.
At least you got the sense to know you've screwed up. I'll probably be cleaning toilets by the end of the week, but you'll be busy too.
And with that option, we gain NCR infamy, but no caps. Or we can apologize from the very beginning and say, I'm sorry, Ambassador. I screwed up.
That's an understatement. Still, there's nothing to be done about it now. Maybe the violence will die down once things settle. Here, take this. It's not what I was planning to give you, but you deserve some sort of payment for your efforts.
And if we choose that option, we still gain the infamy, but we get 300 caps. The alternative is going to Colonel Shu at the McCarran Airport instead of Colonel Moore at Hoover Dam. We find Shu in his eastern office, where we always find him.
Yes, what is it?
And we can say, Ambassador Crocker said to come see you about the situation with the Kings in Freeside.
Ah, that. I'm surprised he didn't send you to Colonel Moore. That'd be her jurisdiction.
He said those were his official orders, but suggested seeing you anyway.
Because he's looking to avoid a bloodbath. I get it. He knows me.
He said you might have a better way of dealing with the issue.
Well, I do get to make the calls on the distribution of supplies there. Crocker was probably counting on me being able to offer the Kings a carrot. And that's what I'm inclined to do.
The ambassador didn't think Colonel Moore would handle the situation correctly.
Moore's got her hands full right now, and she's not a subtle person in the best of times. Her solution would be quick and dirty. I agree with Crocker that a more peaceful solution is preferable, especially for the long term. All right, Moore's not going to like it, but that's for Crocker to worry about. Go to the leader of the Kings and tell him that I'll make sure Freeside gets more water, power, and food, as long as the violence there stops.
When done, we head back to the King's School of Impersonation, and just like last time, we find troopers outside the door. Inside the auditorium, we find the same dozen troopers, but this time when we approach the stage...
Okay, I need some answers now. These guys just barged in here and said they were under orders to keep me here until you arrived. I'm about 5 seconds away from telling my men to take them down, so speak fast.
We find completely different dialogue options. Now, we could throw all of this away and say, "Don't take that tone with me. The soldiers would wipe the floor with your men."
Sounds like a challenge. Boys, let's do this.
In which case, the Kings and the NCR begin to attack each other, just like last time. Or, we can choose the other two options, which have the same result. We could say, "I've been instructed to offer you more resources in exchange for your word that the violence stops."
That sounds fair. And all I have to do is try to tone down the attacks on the squatters, you say?
Or we could say, "I apologize for their rudeness. The NCR wants peace in Freeside and offers additional supplies."
And I suppose they want me to help see that happen? That seems pretty reasonable.
This is bullshit. Why are we even talking about dealing with these guys?
Pace, this isn't really a good time to have this discussion.
Wrong. This is exactly the right time. I'm about to prevent you from making a huge mistake.
Pace, don't do this. I won't stand with you if you do.
Then I'll stand on my own, just like I always have. Just like a king should. Come on!
Pacer and his loyal Kings open fire on the NCR and the Kings loyal to the King. But there are only a handful of Pacer's Kings, making this a short battle. When Pacer and his Kings lie dead, the NCR leave the rest of the Kings alone. And when we next check in with the King, we find him mourning for his lost friend.
I can't believe Pace is gone. He was always right here, you know? Always cracking me up with some story or another.
No matter which of these options we choose, when we check in with Crocker, we can say that the King has accepted Colonel Shu's offer of help.
Good, good. Shu's a man you can count on to handle a crisis. I'm just glad that things didn't end in violence. Here, this is what remains of the funds initially allocated for this operation.
We gain NCR fame and 600 caps. But the easiest way to get the Kings to work with the NCR is to call in our favor. If, after completing the King's quests, we never used our favor when we next talk to the King...
Things have been a lot better since you helped with those soldier boys. Thanks again. So, what can I do for you?
We can again ask him to stop the violence against the NCR citizens.
Whoa, that's a doozy. Truth be told, I don't even know if I can pull something like that off.
Well, if you can't do it...
Hold on now, I didn't say I couldn't do it, just that I couldn't guarantee it. And even that's probably stretching the truth a little. Just leave everything to me. I'll see that the violence stops. But this makes us even, you hear?
The Kings will follow your leadership.
Damn straight they will. It's some of the other locals that I'm worried about. On second thought, if I can whip this band of hooligans into obedience, a stray tough guy or two shouldn't be a problem. Okay, you've got a deal. No more violence against the NCR on my watch. But this makes us even, you hear?
All I'm asking is that you try.
I'll give it my best. You've earned that much. But that makes us even, you hear?
And with that, we learned that the king is a man of his word. We solved the delicate problem with absolutely no violence. Pacer and his goons stop their violence against NCR citizens, and we get to keep Pacer alive. If we choose this option, when we next check in with Ambassador Crocker...
Hello. I trust you have something to report concerning the Freeside situation?
We find an option to say, I spoke to the king, and he promised to stop the violence against NCR citizens.
That's great to hear. He's got a lot of sway in Freeside, so we can expect a dramatic drop in violence soon. Now, you're probably wondering about your reward. This has been something of a hot-button topic, so I was able to secure this for you.
With that, we gain NCR fame, 600 bottle caps, but we find an option to pass a barter check of 60 to say, I risked my neck out there. Couldn't you spare a little more? And if we pass it, he gives us 200 extra bottle caps.
Well, I don't officially have access to any more funds, but here. This is from me personally. There's more coming your way, too. I've received a message from Colonel Moore up at Hoover Dam. She's been following your exploits and has requested that you meet with her. You're not officially in the employ of the NCR, so there's nothing forcing you to go. But I'd go see her sooner rather than later. The Colonel is not someone you want to keep waiting.
With that, we complete the quest, The King's Gambit, and we begin the quest for the Republic. We're now done working with Ambassador Crocker, and I have to say that I'm gonna miss him. He's a bureaucrat, but he's a level-headed, decent bureaucrat, and he plays Caravan, which means he's a good man. But now things are starting to move. We have to head to Hoover Dam and begin working with Colonel Cassandra Moore. We've already learned exactly what kind of woman she is. Will her no-nonsense attitude ultimately help the NCR or hurt it? We'll find out in my next episode. I publish many videos each and every week here on my channel, so if you want to make sure you don't miss the next episode in this series, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. They also come on other products as well, like smartphone cases, mugs, pillows, posters, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. I'm becoming more active on Twitter. That's where I make channel updates if I have to skip a day or delay an episode, and I pay close attention to viewer feedback. So if you like Twitter, I encourage you to follow me at Oxhorn. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you this coming week with more videos about the full story of Fallout New Vegas.